Go sleep under a bridge. Maybe hunger will finally teach you what real work looks like. My backpack slammed into the snowbank with a hollow thud. My father, Mark Dalton, stood in the doorway, his face flushed red against the swirling white storm outside. Behind him, my mother, Elaine, didn't even look up from her phone. She was scrolling Instagram, probably liking one of my sister Lauren's fake sold posts, the ones where she posed in front of houses she hadn't actually closed. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I brushed the snow off my bag, looked him straight in the eyes, and smiled. Not a kind smile. It was the kind of smile a landlord gives when a tenant violates a lease and doesn't realize eviction just started. Then I turned and walked straight into the blizzard. Before I tell you exactly how I made them regret that night, drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from. City, country, time zone. I want to know who's here with me. Most people in a storm look for shelter. I looked for a signal. I drove past the cheap motels, past the closed library, straight toward the private hangars at Cedar Ridge Regional Airport. I typed in a code my parents thought unlocked a storage locker at the gym. The steel door slid open. Inside sat my real home, a Falcon 8X, sleek and silent under the hangar lights. I climbed aboard, shook the snow off my coat, and sank into the leather seat. The cabin smelled like climate control and money, that clean, neutral scent of things that never age. I opened my laptop, the same laptop my father had just thrown into a snowbank. The screen blinked on. While Mark was screaming at me about getting a real job, my trading bot had executed 39 automated market moves. Net profit in the last hour? $47,600. I didn't feel happy. Happiness is emotional. This was math. For 31 years, I had been the invisible one in that house, the disappointment, the basement dweller who played on computers. 2 weeks later, I was watching the sunrise over downtown Aspen Falls from the balcony of the penthouse suite at the Ironclad Hotel. The reservation wasn't under my name. It belonged to one of my holding companies. To the staff, I was just a quiet consultant who tipped well and didn't want housekeeping. To my family, I was suddenly a criminal. My phone, which I'd left on silent for 14 days, was vibrating nonstop across the marble counter. Not calls, messages. I picked it up and scrolled. It read like a case study in panic. 3 days after I left, the day the Summit advisory deposit normally hit, my mother texted, "Claire, did you mess with the Wi-Fi before you left? The business account is glitching. Mark can't pay suppliers. What did you do to the system?" I sipped my espresso. The system was fine. The subsidy was gone. By day 7, annoyance turned into rage. Mark wrote, "We know you hacked our accounts. It's the only explanation. Put the money back or I'm calling the police." Another message followed. "Lauren is in tears because her commission check is late and we can't help her. You think this is funny?" I laughed. A dry, humorless sound. They genuinely believed I was hacking them. Their brains couldn't accept the alternative. In their world, Mark was the provider, and I was the tech-illiterate basement failure. It was easier to believe I'd suddenly become a cybercriminal than to accept they'd been living off my generosity for half a decade. And Lauren's commission check? I pulled up the MLS database. She hadn't closed a sale in 6 months. There was no check coming. She was drowning in credit card debt, lease payments on a car she couldn't afford, and influencer-styled expenses meant to support an image that wasn't real. She wasn't crying because of a banking error. She was crying because the bank of mom and dad had collapsed, and she didn't know why. I didn't reply. I didn't defend myself. I let their private panic turn into public theater. 3 days later, my mother took the drama online. Facebook. Forensic accounting is an autopsy for money. You cut open the numbers and see what actually killed the patient. Noah arrived 2 days later. He looked wildly out of place in the hotel's glass and marble living room, clutching his battered briefcase like emotional armor. He didn't know about my finances until I slid my tablet across the table. He choked on his water. Claire, he whispered, scrolling, this is institutional level wealth. You're not rich, you're invisible rich. I prefer ghost, I said, and I need you to haunt my parents. I handed him access to the Summit Advisory accounts, the shell company I'd used to funnel money to them. But I also handed him something else, authorization to pull credit reports, loan histories, and public filings tied to my father's LLC. I was sending them almost $60,000 a year, I said, pouring him water. Dad has a pension. Lauren claims she's selling luxury real estate. Why did the money freeze cause total collapse in 3 days? He adjusted his glasses. The shock faded. Focus replaced it. You have 24 hours, I said. You'll have answers in 12, he replied. While no one dissected the digital trail, I worked on the physical one. I opened a file, not as Claire Dalton, the rejected daughter, but as managing director of Northcrest Holdings, the trust that had quietly purchased my parents' non-performing mortgage note 6 months earlier. The bank didn't care who bought it, they just wanted the debt off their books. My parents had received a letter saying their loan had been sold to a new servicer. They'd probably tossed it in the trash. They didn't know their new creditor was the daughter living in their basement. I'd bought the note as insurance, a safety net in case Dad's gambling resurfaced. Now it was leverage. I drafted a notice of default and intent to accelerate. Cursor blinking. For years, I'd been afraid of my father's voice, the way it boomed when he was angry, the way he could make me feel 5 inches tall just by sighing. But looking at that document, the fear vanished. In law, he wasn't a patriarch, he was a distressed borrower, and I was the secured creditor. Like an equation finally balanced. I stared at the number. $29,200. In corporate finance, we call this a termination fee, the cost to exit a contract early. It hurts, but once you pay it, you're free. No more meetings, no more obligations. For 31 years, I'd paid an emotional tax to belong to that family, with silence, with self-doubt, with secret financial support. But this theft? This was the final invoice. They didn't steal from me, I said quietly. They handed me a receipt. Noah blinked. For what? For freedom. I walked to the window, staring at the snow-covered skyline. If I hired lawyers to cut them out of my life, it'd cost this much. If I paid therapists to undo decades of emotional damage, it'd cost this much. They just processed the transaction themselves. I turned back. They didn't rob me. They bought my exit. So you're not calling the police? Noah asked. No, I said. Police are for criminals. My parents aren't criminals. What are they? Bad investments. I snapped the binder shut. The sound echoed like a gunshot. I'm not sending them to jail. Jail gives them sympathy. I'm doing something worse. What? I'm treating them like they treated me. A failed transaction. I checked my watch. 5 p.m. Pack up, I said. I just invited them to dinner at the Iron Crest. Told them I have a proposal to fix their cash flow. Noah looked horrified. You're feeding them? No, I said, grabbing my coat. I'm serving them. The Iron Crest is the kind of restaurant where menus don't have prices, and the air smells like aged wood and truffle butter. It's where Aspen Falls' real power brokers eat. I arrived 10 minutes early, ordered sparkling water, sat with my back to the wall. The leather binder rested on the table like a loaded weapon. Didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. For 2 weeks, you've accused me of hacking your accounts, of sabotaging your business. You're wrong. I tapped the binder. I didn't hack your money, Dad. I was your money. Every mortgage payment, every lease payment, every fake consulting retainer. That was me, I said. My charity, keeping you afloat, because you can't generate actual wealth. I turned to Elaine. And you, I said, you forged my signature and stole my inheritance to cover Lauren's fraud. That's felony identity theft. I could have federal agents here tonight. Elaine burst into tears. Claire, please, we're family. No, I said, family doesn't steal. Parasites steal. And I just fumigated the house. I stood. You have 30 days to vacate the property. Northcrest Holdings owns it now, which means I do. If you're not out by the 1st, the sheriff will remove you. Lauren jumped up, grabbing my arm. You can't do this. I have a reputation in this town. I pulled free. You don't have a reputation, I said. You have a tab, and I'm done paying it. I dropped a $100 bill on the table. That covers my water and the tip. I looked at all 3 of them. They looked small. Strangers. Enjoy dinner, I said. You're paying for this one. Then I walked out. Didn't look back. Didn't need to see the panic when the bill arrived. I already knew what bankruptcy looked like. The collapse didn't happen overnight. It was slow, grinding, like a glacier breaking into the sea. Lauren filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy 3 weeks later. The Range Rover was repossessed from the driveway of the house she'd been squatting in. The luxury real estate agent who once posted rooftop selfies was suddenly driving a 10-year-old sedan and working reception at a ski lodge. My parents moved into a 2-bedroom rental condo on the edge of town. It wasn't bad. It was adequate. But for people who'd built their identity on appearing wealthy, adequate felt like exile. I didn't stick around to watch. I bought a ranch deep in the Silver Ridge Mountains, 80 acres of pine, snow, and silence. I installed fiber optics, built a server room in the basement, set my desk facing the peaks. It's quiet here. The kind of quiet that rings in your ears. My phone still lights up sometimes with blocked voicemails. I don't listen. I don't need to know if they're angry, sorry, or begging. People ask me why I didn't fix them, why, after I won, I didn't force therapy on them or bail them out with conditions. Here's the truth. You can't fill a cup that refuses to be emptied. My parents were committed to misunderstanding me. Their worldview required me to be the failure so they could feel successful. If I bailed them out, even with rules, I'd just be validating their delusion. I'd be proving I still wanted their approval. The only way to win was to leave completely, to create a vacuum where my presence used to be. When you stop arguing,